Good evening. I would like to call to order the Monday, February 6, 2023 meeting of the Wilson School Board. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case,
Here.
Mr. Hart,
Here.
Mrs. Casper,
Here.
Dr. Kennedy,
Here.
Mr. Martin,
Here.
Mr. McCray,
Here.
Mr. Negrini,
Here.
Mr. Schneider,
Here.
Mrs. Cocker.
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the pledge to the flag. Thanks. Good evening. First, we have a communication on Career Connections presentation by Dr. Stacy Stout.
Hello, everyone. As you know, we've been working on our strategic goals, and each year up through 2025, we've been thinking about how we're going to go about attaining those goals. One of the main goals that we have is that profile of a Wilson graduate. And what that means is that there are many attributes and opportunities that we want in place for all children as they move through the Wilson School District. And so as we were examining the many opportunities that we do have here, thinking about the amazing opportunities in our internship program. We have amazing career opportunities and life readiness opportunities through our School to Work program. We have many other opportunities. You saw the Grandview Gallery. We know we've seen many theater presentations and choral concerts and music concerts, and we have so many opportunities for our children. We were also wondering if it was important for the public to know what kinds of career orientation opportunities are offered through our course opportunities at Wilson. So we got our heads around this idea of bringing to you what happens in our high school to start around this life and career readiness, as we're also thinking about the life, career, and potential college readiness opportunities that we offer. So we asked some teachers in some of our departments to be the spearheads to this information that we're going to be bringing to you. This is the start of taking a look at what we have in the way of career development opportunities in our programs. So I would like to introduce Mr. Ryan Dennis and Mrs. Corey Ham and their many students to tell us a little bit about what career opportunities exist here in Wilson courses.
Hello, my name is Ryan Dennis, and I'm a high school teacher in Wilson's Technology and Engineering program. I also serve as the department chairperson and head advisor of the Technology Student Association. I am here with my colleague, Mr. Mike Wallens, to share with you the impact our program has on preparing students for their pathway in college, a future career, and life. To help me with this, I have brought some students to share with you the effect our program has had on them, and specifically a bit about college, career, and life-ready skills they are using on a daily basis in our classes. You will also notice a photo slideshow playing on the screen illustrating a daily experience that our students encounter. These students and all others who benefit from our program regularly engage in an incredibly diverse number of technical experiences and opportunities, far too many to highlight in this short presentation. So with that being said, I would like to invite you to visit our program in action, check out our labs, equipment, facilities, so that you can see firsthand our amazing students and staff in action. See the college, career, and life-ready skills that they are using on a daily basis. Let me now introduce Jacob Hoffert, Catherine Arntz, Robbie Henning, Will Hill, seniors in our capstone course, to share a bit about their work in honors engineering design and development.
All right. Good evening. My name is Jacob Hoffert. This is Catherine. That's Will, and that's Robbie, and we are students in the Engineering Design and Development Capstone course here at Wilson. My favorite part of this program is the freedom we're given as students to do something we're passionate about. After a few years of specialized engineering courses, it's a great opportunity to compile the skills we learned in all of those classes and put it into one finalized project that we work on all year. Our group has been working on a modified aquaponics system. Bring the slide up. Where we take waste from a fish tank that's going to be recycled to act as fertilizer for the plants that we're going to grow hydroponically to grow. The purpose of this project is to grow herbs that can be used for a cooking unit in one of our multi-disabilities classrooms. So the herbs they will use in their cooking unit. Yeah.
I've been in the STEM department for 4 years, and I've been able to enjoy the hands-on experience through multiple engineering classes with using common fabrication tools and machine lab resources that allow us to be part of a full product life cycle from design to manufacturing to assembly. This project has allowed us to work in a team environment and leverage everyone's unique skills and strengths to deliver a finished product we can be proud of. Also, our Wilson STEM program provides students with various tools and machines that allow us to complete more tasks and be exposed to tools that we would see in professional or job-like environments. We are very excited to continue to work on, problem solve, and learn through our project and create a product that can be at use for Mrs. Cook and the Special Education Department. Thank you.
Next, I would like to introduce Sawyer Allred, a current junior, to share a bit about his work in digital electronics.
Good evening. As Mr. Dennis introduced, I am Sawyer Allred, and I'm taking digital electronics. To me, one of the greatest parts of digital electronics is how hands-on you get with digital electronics. Typically, there's about 2 to 3 days of circuit theory and taking notes before we begin a project, and then 2 to 3 weeks of actually putting that theory into an actual project and kind of connect the dots that the circuit theory laid out for us. What I'm holding here is a random number generator that was one of the first projects we worked on. Before making this, we had about 2 to 3 days of talking about logic gates and how different sequences of logic gates can create different results, such as different sides of a dice turning on. I can say with certainty that this class will definitely benefit even those who do not intend on going into computer-related fields, as technology is such a key part of most jobs these days, and even if you don't intend on maybe wiring circuits, having a basic understanding of computers certainly will not do you wrong. Thank you.
Please allow me to introduce Will Cochran, a current 9th grader, to share with you his work from both iSTEM and the electric guitar that he is currently making in Honors Introduction to Engineering Design.
Hello, my name is William Cochran, and I'm a 9th grader here at Wilson High School. My favorite things about my tech and engineering classes that I take are getting to use the tools every day in order to make our project look and perform as efficiently as possible. Before this year, I had no idea how to use any of the machinery or computer software that we use currently. Now I have the knowledge to design and create almost anything imaginable. I always look forward to these classes during my day. And this is the 76ers logo that we made in our iSTEM class using a CNC router. And this is the neck and the body for the Instruction, Engineering, and Design class, where we make an electric guitar throughout the whole entire year.
Next, I would like to introduce Tanya Polka, a current junior, to share a bit about her work in STEM explorations.
Hi, my name's Tanya Palka. I'm an 11th grade student here at Wilson High School. The last 2 school years, I was in STEM explorations. In this class, I learned how to use a lot of programs and a lot of machinery that I never thought I was ever going to do in my life, such as Fusion 360, which is a 3D modeling program. I've learned VCarve, which is for the CNC router. I made this 3D snowflake with that CNC router. Along with those platforms, I've also learned how to weld, solder, use a plasma cutter, the 3D printer, and probably the most useful thing, just to figure out how to solve problems. And I really recommend this class to a lot of students that don't know what they might do in life, because there's so many options that you can choose from, and like, you can basically do whatever you want and like dream of, I guess. And then this is another project that I had. It's I welded today. It was my first welding project, and yeah, thank you.
Lastly, allow me to introduce Mr. Mike Wallens, the most recent member to join our Technology and Engineering Department.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Wallens, and I am a first-year teacher as the new Wilson Technology Engineering Education Program teacher. When interviewing at multiple locations for a teaching job this past spring, I ultimately drew to Wilson was the strength of the program that I would get to be a part of. Wilson's Technology and Engineering program provides me with extensive amounts of learning opportunities that far exceeds those found on local surrounding districts and districts all over the state. The students here have the opportunity to pursue almost any project of their choosing, ranging from basic woodworking, welding and fabrication, CNC design and development, architectural design, and now automotive studies, where students can even bring their own car to the class and work on it. This also includes painting and finishing, and more than I can ever even list in this short speech. Essentially, the sky is the limit for the students who engage in Wilson's Technology and Engineering program. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll hand it back to Mr. Dennis for the closing calls.
If any member of our board, community, or student body have additional questions about our program, feel free to contact me. Our department will be present at this Thursday night's course selection open house to help with scheduling-related needs. A brochure with our full class listing, which includes 7 courses that make college credit available to students while they're in high school, is available in the district offices or upon request. As a thank you to each of you for your continued support of our program, we would like to present you with a customized gift of our appreciation. Thank you very much, and have a nice night.
Good evening. I am Corey Ham, the Family Consumer Sciences Department Head. This is my first year in the high school, but it is my 18th year at Wilson teaching Family Consumer Science. I was at West and Central for 17 previous years. I am enjoying the new change of the high school, just new and different. And I'm also the Family Career Community Leaders of America Advisor, the FCCLA Advisor too. I have 3 amazing students here to talk about the 3 different pathways of the Family Consumer Science Department. We have taken our courses, and there's pathways of culinary, human development, and textiles and interior design. We are going to first start with Natalie Roberts, who is going to talk about culinary, and I will show her lovely cake that she brought with to show her decorating skills as well. So we do have 3 foods courses. Investigating Foods, which is our 9th and 10th grade course. Then there's Food Prep, which you can take 10th through 12th, and Chefs, which is 11th and 12th grade.
Hi, my name is Natalie Roberts, and I'm taking Food Prep this year as a sophomore. I took this class because I was interested in the topics of baking and cooking, and in this class I really learned how to advance my skills in measuring and food planning with costs. my cake that I made this year, part of the skills like that I used to make it was like measuring to make the frosting, and then I also learned like the different piping tips and techniques to do the design. And then I didn't do this for this cake, but we also learned the transfer design with the gel that you can like print a picture and then do the gel with it to transfer. Next year I'm taking chef's course, and that course is more about like specific foods from different countries and the cooking techniques that they use to make these different foods. I'm not really sure what I want to do like as far as post high school like careers, but I do know that like cooking and baking is a great skill to have because you can bake a cake or cupcakes for your family or your friends for special occasions. And even when I go off to college, like I can't survive off of microwave foods, so I'm obviously going to have to, learn how to make a meal myself. So that's why I took food prep and chef's course. Thank you.
We do have this and plates and stuff for you at the end.
Can we see it? Oh, beautiful.
I keep hoping it's not going to slide off.
My kid would still eat it if it fell on the floor, just saying. He'd still eat it.
So some of the just quick other pictures of things that we've done of gingerbread houses and different learning about yeast breads. And there's a cupcake wars this coming Friday if anyone would like to come to do that. That's in the lower house with Mrs. Schock. There's some other pictures just of showing of things that they have done in the past of other cupcakes, family meals, learning about kneading skills, and just in-class activities. Also some pancake art that was done in the past. We've been an Iron Chef, so we're looking forward to coming back to Iron Chef as well for this year. So we also have some human development courses. In there are child development, honors early childhood, honors student instructional assistant, and understanding relationships. So I am teaching 2 of those current courses, and I have Kenna Eglin, who is here, who's going to talk about those courses that she's taken.
Hi, my name is Kenna Eglin, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Family Consumer Sciences Department, specifically the Child Development Pathway. In my time at Wilson High School, I was given the opportunity to take Child Development, Honors Early Childhood Professional, and currently Honors SIA. In taking these courses, I have completed over 300 hours working with children in preschool, elementary, and middle school settings. I became certified in CPR and AED, created lesson plans pertaining to 8 subjects, taught lessons, built an educational profile showing the work that I've done in the field of education, attended the 4th grade Capitol field trip, and observed experienced teachers run their classrooms. From these experiences, I learned that I aspired to be a middle education teacher focusing on English. From my current placement in 8th grade history, I realized I really like middle education, but not as fond of history as I thought. Before this experience, I thought I wanted to be a high school history teacher. Honors SIA and Honors Early Childhood Professional has provided me the opportunity to figure this out before taking college courses. Most students in college learn what I've already learned during their junior or senior years. I plan on attending Millersville University, and at a visit, they said that they were well known for their teaching program because their students get the opportunity to student teach earlier on in their college career compared to many other colleges. I was lucky enough to be given the opportunity to student teach in my high school career. The Child Development Program was very beneficial to me and benefits many others, and I feel more confident and prepared to start college next year majoring in middle level education. Thank you.
Some other things that I would like to touch on in our child development pathway is that it's also dual enrolled, or I'm working on bringing back the dual enrollment for next year so that my students that take the Honors Early Childhood and Child Development would get 9 RAC credits if they so wish to take that. Our child development students are meeting all the requirements of the clearances to meet the Department of Health and Human Services, so they can take those clearances and then go to and work with any children in any future summer job that they already have. They're learning tons of experiences from this. So just some other pictures of their hands-on working with children and some of the projects that they've done through Berkshire Heights and the elementary schools. Then I also have Miss Brianna Byler. I almost called her her nickname, so that's why I stuttered, sorry about that. And she is here to talk about the textiles and interior design pathways, and in fashion and interior, textiles and clothing constructions 1 through 3. And the third level is an honors level course, and custom design and theater production.
Good evening. My name is Brianna Bidler, and I'm a senior here at Wilson High School. I've taken the fashion interior design course, as well as all 3 levels of textile and clothing construction. I do not personally take the class, but I'm involved in costumes and things through the other classes as well. So I have a lot of visuals tonight, so just bear with me, because I've done a lot of projects and had the opportunity to do a lot through this class. So the first one that I kind of want to show and highlight was from the interior design course. Where we were told to create a room for Mary's shelter, and then we had a color scheme as well as a floor plan, and we worked with a budget and everything in order to create a room that was then made for Mary's shelter for the people to live in and just, I guess, live in this space when they are residing at the shelter. So that was really important things. It taught me kind of the principles and elements of design that I could move into the fashion course then. So then within the fashion course, which is the second half of fashion interior design, we work on a clothing line, and mine was called Vernine, and the specific line was titled Immersive Identity. I based it on the New York City subway. So under that, you create a mood board, you look at a target customer, color palette in order to create 5, well not 5, I think it's like 6 pieces. It's 5 pieces that you create then as a collection. And I was really grateful because I was actually able to use 2 of these pieces in my portfolio to apply to colleges like Fashion Institute of Technology and the Parsons School of Design. And from there, the pictures on the right were the ones that I had actually submitted along with the swatches that would go along with the fabrics. So that was for the fashion class. And then I've been really grateful too because I've been able to expand upon each of these as I move on. So the fashion interior design has taught me the principles and everything of the actual design and the drawing of designs. And then when I moved on to textiles and clothing construction, I was able to actually put those principles into use. And within this class, I've learned pattern making, I've learned draping. The green dress on the left, I was actually able to draw and print as its own fabric. So I learned kind of the actual designing of not only clothing, but fabric as well, and just the manipulation and everything that you can do through that within each of these courses. And it's just been really, I've been really grateful for it because it's been very hands-on. Every day I get to work on my project. I've also made this, which is why it kind of looks like I'm wearing a straight jacket right now. But this was another project I had worked on, and all of these I've been able to include in my portfolio to colleges as well. And another thing that I've been able to do is within the class, I've worked on many different projects that I have then taken to a club called Wilson Runway Club. It's a club basically where we have a fashion show every year. This year's is called Supernova. I'll have a flyer for it after this one. But there's just a few looks that we've done. These are all the ones that I personally have done. So all of these I've been able to work on in the classes and then directly apply them to this club that I'm currently working on right now. And it's just been really great because I've been able to work on my career now while I'm still in high school and get like a start in my portfolio and just everything that I'm really interested in pursuing once I leave this school. So I've been really grateful for everything. And then there's the flyer. So it's May 19th and 20th if you wanted to come. But thank you so much.
So I am honored to be working with these lovely students who go above and beyond and have shown amazing work. I'm looking forward to continuous years of working with them and growing the Family Consumer Science Department. Thank you.
Thank you to Corey and Ryan and Mike and the kids for coming out. We really appreciate getting to see the immense quality of work that you all are doing. And we hope to bring you more in the future. And you all, once again, thank you. And you guys can head out. We really appreciate it. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, these are Wilson courses that are offered, but in addition, I mentioned some other programs like School to Work and our internships, but I did forget to mention the amazing programs that are offered at the BCTC as well. And so we can't forget about all of these opportunities that Wilson students have in preparation for their career and their life and potentially college as well. Thanks.
Students, if you can just hang tight for a second to give our board members a chance if there's any remarks that they'd like to share with you while you're still present.
I'd just like to say I was, as always, when the students come up, I was really just in awe of the amazing talent that exists within these walls. So thank you again for sharing that with us.
And I'll just echo, I think what's already been said, but to our teachers, thank you so much for dedicating all of your energy, your passion, enthusiasm to our students. Students, again, in front of us, you handled yourself with poise. I think the thing I'm always the most impressed with is your ability to speak publicly. That is a skill that's hard to teach. And I'm always impressed by, as I'm sure our audience members are as well, of your ability to do so. Some of the themes that I pulled out from your remarks, and it was nice to see 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders, and 12th graders, is just there's a full course offering out there. I liken it really to a college four-year program, right, where there's required courses you have to take, right? We all have to take them. It's part of the program. But how many of our students are really enriched is by how you supplement those offerings through electives. And I'm a former elective teacher, so I'm clearly passionate about this. My kids have benefited from these programs as well. But what I heard from many of you is the ability to learn skills, to practice skills in an environment outside of perhaps a traditional tested subject, right? We know that those are measures, but the things that you're learning and the skills you're developing are just really hard to teach, right, in a standard, geometry classroom. The second thing I heard was this idea of you're learning those work skills and you're getting real-world work experience while in high school. Many of you mentioned that. And I just want to definitely reinforce that's another added element, I think, to the courses that you're taking. And some of you even mentioned you learned that you maybe not want to be, you don't want to be a high school history teacher. And that is just as valuable as learning that you do. You know, before you spend 4, 5, 6 years of your life on whatever the next phase is, you know now that the middle level is probably a better spot for you. So just thank you so much. Thank you for sharing those career-ready skills. We're gonna segue into some goal work we're doing as an organization, and I feel really good about some of the career readiness pieces that we already have in place. So thank you very much.
I would just add, you're all incredible and the future's bright. What I saw the most was how passionate you are to learn, to come to school and learn, which is great to see. So thank you.
I also wanted to add, this is a great way to prepare. My daughter is going on Thursday to select some of her courses for the high school later this week. And she already knows she wants to take the guitar making course. So, so I'm excited about getting a preview for that and taking my pen home to her and showing her what she can make. So thank you so much for bringing this forward and to just everything that Dr. Trickett said about your poise and your ability to be able to convey to us all of the wonderful things that you've been doing. So thank you to the teachers for all your efforts and support for our students.
I see Mrs. Moore snuck in too, so thank you.
Thank you all very much. So as a nice lead-in from our student presentation, we now have our mid-year goal update with Dr. Trickett and his team.
Thank you, President Cucker. This is a really nice segue for us to present what we're calling a mid-year update, knowing that we're a little bit beyond the mid-year mark. Just trying to constantly go back and recenter around the vision that we created roughly 7 or 8 months ago today, focusing specifically on creating a place where students love to learn, employees love to work, and people love to live. We heard a little bit about the students' experience today, and I would be remiss if I didn't draw attention back to the pieces that we heard tonight that are not easily measured. You know, when we look at school systems across the Commonwealth and beyond, it is easy and efficient to look at data points that are quantitative in nature. School districts that focus solely on those marks, in my opinion, my professional experience, are missing the mark. And I think that these kids exemplified the need to have a well-rounded, balanced approach to education. So again, as a reminder, we go back into work that we did previously at the board level and the public level, where we established our vision. We identified and refocused on the mission, the purpose that we have that was established previously. We started to look at some targets out in the future, 3 years, that we could start to focus on and build our goals around. And those 6 items are identified here. We're going to unpack them a little bit more deeply tonight. We then developed, within those 2025 targets, we created action steps for the 2022-2023 school year, the school year that we're currently a little over halfway through. Understanding that sometimes progress is slow, and we need to remain focused on things that we can do and celebrate those wins as we're moving towards those 2025 targets. So this document is linked in here with a lot of information. These bullet points we're going to expand upon here today to give the community and our board just a little taste of where we are. So we're roughly 100 days through the school year. We're in the month of February, and the days are slowly getting longer, thankfully. So our first piece that we discussed and have been discussing for some time is this profile of a Wilson graduate. Mr. Dennis and some of our students mentioned this as well. Focusing on specifically life, career, and college readiness. No longer focused just on preparing college-ready graduates. We talked about this previously. Here's where we are. Those items in red are specific target statements for this school year. Where are we with our data? Well, we're beginning to draft what that data is going to look like. How are we going to store this data? How are we going to report this data out to our community, to our teachers? How are we going to use that data to goal set? What does the term meaningful mean? Unpacking some of those key terms and defining them so that we can develop strong data sets to bring back to our board as we goal set for future years. We're engaging with our staff through this collective process, our school counselors, our leaders, our teachers, and so forth. We've presented the profile, which was a key goal this year. We wanted to get that across the finish line. We did that, and the dates are archived here. We presented and launched a website, which again, I believe was presented here publicly a few weeks or a few months ago. And then also began our communication strategy to ensure that our community, our business owners, and all of our stakeholders are aware of our focus in regards to the profile of the Wilson graduate. We're now undertaking a deep dive into the college education and work implementation. Every school district in the Commonwealth is required to do this, but we want to make sure that our work is meaningful. We want to most importantly make sure that it's impactful. We don't want to check boxes, and we don't want to do it because it's just a measure of compliance. So that work is begun. We are working with some different providers to ensure that we have the right tools in place to appropriately do this and expose kids to some of those skills that we were discussing. The item on the far right was more of a expectation piece, a data piece that came about through our research, creating a plan to ensure that students receive a C or better in math and English. This is a critical piece because it's a data point that leads to future-ready success for kids, regardless of what their pathways are. I think we can all get behind the idea that a child should show proficiency in those core areas. We heard kids today talking about figuring out a cost analysis of rooms for Mary Shelter. We heard kids that are designing CNC guitar bodies and programming CNC code, which I don't understand a whole lot about. That's all math. It's all the application of math, and all of our kids should be able to do those pieces. So we're developing that plan and specifically action steps that we need to be taking in order to ensure that happens. Proactively monitoring kids when their grades start to fail, making sure that we have a plan in place to support them and catch them before it's too late. This is a heavy lift for us right here. This goal is all about getting the best people to want to work in our school district, keeping the best people here, and making sure that their experiences in our school district are as positive as possible. So some of the pieces that we're doing is we're focusing on training, doing some research to make sure we have the right tools in place to train our staff, not just our teachers. We have 1,500 employees here. 525, 550 of those folks are on the teaching staff. Nearly 1,000 people fall into other employee types, making sure that everyone has access to quality training to make sure that they can do their jobs well. We're not there yet. We have work to do. Conduct and review district job descriptions. We will be bringing forth to our board in late March a phased-in process, which will start with our support staff populations, making sure that those folks who have a major impact on kids who might not always have the largest voice or the loudest voice, making sure that their voices are here in this room, making sure that their job descriptions accurately match what they do, and then ultimately making sure that their compensation matches the level of expectations we have for them. This work is good work. It's a heavy lift. It's work that we are getting very, very close to rolling out, and we have been communicating with our employee groups on this piece. A lot of surveys you see on the right-hand side have been conducted. Focus groups have been held this school year, and we've identified 10 priorities that we are attacking currently as we work throughout this school year. We are not immune to the staffing shortages and issues that are impacting our community. And we want to make sure that if there's people who want to work in our sector, we want their first choice to be Wilson. So that's our goal. The other thing we're doing is a big organization. There's a lot of in and out of employees. We need to make sure that those processes are streamlined, make sure that they're user-friendly, and again, making sure that their first impression of our school district is a positive one that says, I want to work in this school district. I want to serve the kids in the Wilson community. So we're looking at processes. We're looking at the system and trying to identify areas that we need to improve. That looks like us going through the application process physically, going through it and applying for jobs to feel how cumbersome this is, to think about different folks in our community and making sure we have systems in place for them to apply, to be interviewed, and to ultimately gain employment here in our school district. So good work is occurring within this piece, but a lot of work to do in the future. The next piece is evaluating the curriculum, strengthening the curriculum, instruction, assessment, and the learning environment, and Dr. Stout will take us through this piece.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. This really is why we're here. This is why we exist as an organization, in order to provide a program, an educational experience for our students that is the highest quality and meets our standards for excellence. And so within that goal, we have some areas that we've been working toward. We've got ways that we're looking to connect students into their environment. If students feel a sense of belonging, if they want to be here, if they know that they're valued and appreciated, they will do their best to give us their best. We're going to be working on ways to teach for that not yet kind of mindset, not there yet, I can't do that yet, rather than I just can't. So we're thinking about club opportunities, extracurriculars to engage our students in that sense of belonging. We want to also pull in our parents and build partnerships among the community so that we're all working together in order to help students get there yet. In addition, we're working through curriculum and instruction. In the middle, you can see the focus areas for our teams at both the elementary and secondary levels. We're working on professional development sessions around assessments. Assessments are really the end game, the output that gives us information about how to appropriately tweak the programs and opportunities that we do offer. Do we have assessments that measure what we want students to learn? And do they really give us the evidence? And if not, how are we going to tweak those and really get to the meat of what it is we want students to learn? So our secondary has been working on that through professional learning. They're getting feedback from their supervisors, from their department chairs, from one another in their teams, and from administration in order to really look at that assessment system and make sure that we're continuing to articulate what it is we want students to learn, know, and be able to do. And equal to that, we've got an elementary focus based on planning from the student perspective, thinking about the educational environment, what it feels like to be a learner at Wilson. So opportunities that we've embarked upon. We have total learning experience going on through our collaboration with a local university, Albright. We're doing, again, that professional learning on our assessment system. Students are exposed to the why of what they're learning, and we're working on that integration of the life readiness skills while at the same time focusing on the academics. So we've got a lot of work to do. We're continuing. This happens to be one of the most difficult areas to provide quantitative information on, although we will continue to strive to do that, but also we'll be coming to you with qualitative, anecdotal evidence, real evidence of the difference that we're making as we look to strengthen our curriculum instruction, assessment, and learning environments.
Thank you, Dr. Stout. That's a fantastic segue into talking about creating a safe and secure environment, because quite a few of these action items and goals in this category are quite quantitative and are things that we can say, yes, we've done. We can check that off and say that we've accomplished it. So when we look at safety and security, this is one area that I think it's safe to say keeps us up at night, and it keeps our principals up at night. And it's something that we're extremely concerned about, something that we want to make sure that we're doing everything possible to ensure the safety and security of our students and staff during the school day and after. So if you think about safety and security, there's really kind of two camps that you can break that into. One is the physical safety and security of our students while they're on the site, but then also we need to talk about our mental health and wellness of our students and our staff, and their safety within the academic programs and within the school day. So we've kind of touched on a few of those, a few categories from each of those areas within this slide. Some of the things we've accomplished so far, we have increased our SRO, our staff of SROs here at the district. We've added 2 this year, 2 full-time SROs to our team, so we have 3 total across multiple buildings. Those come with agreements with our local law enforcement agencies and are something we've been working on since the beginning of the school year, and we're happy to say that all 3 are now employed with us full-time and working in our buildings. We've spent some time evaluating our visitor access system, just our procedures around visitors coming into the buildings, and looking at potential options to create some digital logging and visitor badging so we can more easily track those people that are coming in and out of our buildings on a daily basis. We've also done an evaluation of our current technology in terms of our cameras and our door access locks and controls to see what systems need to be updated, what hardware needs to be updated, what software needs to be updated, to make sure that we're fully utilizing all of the systems that we currently have in place, and then analyzing where there may be some gaps and things that we need to add to our systems. And that work is mostly completed and will continue throughout the school year. And then finally, under the camera category, we have been working with a company, and we've talked about this at recent board meetings, called Bus Patrol, to look at adding stop arm cameras onto our buses to help alleviate the problem of motorists passing our buses during pickup and drop-off for our students. So that's something we continue to work with, along with Bus Patrol and with our local law enforcement agencies. And our goal is to move that project along and hopefully be ready to roll, no pun intended, by fall of 2023. In terms of looking at our mental health and wellness side, we have completed our district-wide climate and culture survey. That data was collected in the fall. We're looking to analyze that with a group of stakeholders in March and come up with some action steps out of that data to move that discussion forward. We've also increased training opportunities for not only our staff and our students, but also for our parents through our work with the Cook Center and parentguidance.org, and also through our work with the BCIU and their safety and security staff. And then this final category is something we believe very strongly that one of the most important ways to ensure the mental health and wellness of our students is to ensure that they have a positive connection with our school system and with our school, whether that's with an activity, a club, something they're engaged in, or with a positive adult in their life that they can say that they're connected with. So that's something we continue to work on and track through different types of activities and surveys and opportunities within our school day. Thanks.
So to demonstrate fiscal responsibility, we have reviewed the strategic goals to align with current resources. So the first bullet point there refers to when Dr. Trickett came on board as superintendent, he had some reorganization ideas which he implemented, and he had the commitment that it would be no additional cost to the district for certain administration and support staff positions, and he has honored that commitment with a net zero cost. On the second point there, we talk about the support staff pay rate data analysis, which Dr. Trickett mentioned on a previous slide. We're in the full thrust of doing that work, and we will be reporting to the HR committee as well as the finance committee about potential adjustments so that we're taking care of our support staff. The next point is the Act 1 index cap. The board voted to stay within index in November of '22. So that's our commitment as we work through the 23-24 budget, which we discussed at our Public Finance Committee meeting this afternoon, which also leads to the fourth point of how we've begun the work. We're in the early stages of the budget development, and Mr. Negrini will report out on the Finance Committee that occurred this afternoon. The phase-in budget capacity to address the future enrollment growth we've spoken about many times in public and with the board, and we are looking again at recent enrollment growth projections, and we're kind of unpacking that data and reviewing it, and we bring that to the school board at a future date. We have committed with a committed fund balance for enrollment growth of $2.5 million with the previous audit that just concluded. And the current budget provides for $1.5 million of a continued phase-in to build capacity in our budget to address our enrollment growth. And the board will be discussing publicly our strategies to operate with. Thank you.
And the last goal for this year, as a focus area, was to assess and evaluate the facilities improvement projects. And all of us know that this has been a focused effort really for the last 3 or 4 years. Looking at where we are with what we were calling Phase 1, which is currently the High School Performing Arts Center. Looking at the recommendation process that we went through, a greatly reduced scope for that project, working to get the addendum to the contract submitted, and then ultimately making sure that this project is delivered with all the information that our community and our board needs to make informed decisions at every step along this process. So as a reminder, we're about maybe 5 months into this process right now. We will be bringing this conversation on this particular image that you see, which is the current depiction of the architect's rendering of what could be in the space at the high school. We will come back to the board in early March for another update and for the request to seek permission to move forward into the next phase with our team of architects and engineers. Also, we're having the focus on phase 2. It's not Phase 2 as it was defined a few years ago. It's really what's next, right? What are the next priorities that we need to have as an organization? And Ms. Schlossman hinted to this. We are currently digging through 3 different iterations of enrollment projection reports, trying to look at those reports from a critical lens, trying to look at what our current state of the union is in regard to enrollment. What is the slope? How are we seeing those projections differ from that? Looking at real-world data from our municipalities regarding construction projects, number of families that are moving in and out of our organization. This is a tricky one, right? We're in an interesting time right now, and trying to get this right is a goal of our teams. So we are going to be, or we're committed to, bringing forth conversation with our board this year. That was the goal, to engage in discussions regarding this next step. The goal was not to recommend and to get board approval for the next step. So we will be on target to do that here this spring. So that's really the second and the last piece of this. These goals really just represent some of the high-level pieces. We tweak the work that we do on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis. Just because it's not on the slide deck doesn't mean it's not a priority. Doesn't mean that we're not focusing on it. These goals really just give us our true north. They help us move in the positive direction. They help our conversations around budgets, around staffing, around requests that come before us. Ultimately, we ask ourselves, are those requests going to help us achieve the goals we have set or not? And if the answer is yes, then they go through a little bit more quickly into conversation. If the answer is no, we spend more time analyzing them. So this is our mid-year update. This is where we currently are as a district leadership team, as a building leadership team. Again, there is work to be done over the next 80 days and in the future, but we felt it was important if we're going to set goals and we're going to try to put metrics behind them, that we come to the board and our community in a transparent way to give you a mid-year status update. So that's what we have for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett and team. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Okay, I would just like to thank Dr. Trickett and the district leadership team for thinking outside of the box and being as creative as possible to tackle some of the issues that we're facing, because as was clearly presented by the students, we have a lot of strengths at Wilson, and we also have areas for improvement, just like any other organization or school district. So I appreciate all of your work, and just wanted to, one thing that stuck out, the idea that, you know, as a team, you're going through the hiring process yourselves to see where maybe the pitfalls are or where we can make improvements. I think that's a really great example of creative thinking to solve some of our problems that we're presented with just naturally in the school system. So thank you.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
I have one more communication I'd like
Okay.
to share.
Oh, absolutely.
So a card was received for the board members from the student government members, and I just wanted to read it to the group. So it says, "Thank you. You really made a difference." Dear Wilson School Board members, thank you so much for your service to the community. Now signed by Bryce and Danny, Owen, Jack, and Mackenzie. They're the Wilson Student Government Officers for 22 to 23.
Oh, thank you. Danny, please send our regards for your group. That was very nice. Okay. And thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Burkholder. Solicitor's announcement. Mr. Maravich, we have one agenda item for public participation.
Okay. Rules of public participation for school board meetings pursuant to Sunshine Law, Robert's Rules and Board Policy. The following are the rules of public participation. Individuals attending the meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Public comment is not question and answer, but is instead an opportunity to offer comments on matters that or may come before the board. In particular, personnel or student matters may not be commented on, even if the employee, parent, or student is speaking because of confidentiality laws. As it relates to questions, the superintendent may assign an administrator or may speak directly to the speaker after the meeting to attempt to answer any of those questions raised by the speaker. The board respectfully requests you to direct your comments to the board as a body, as it's the board that will need to vote in future matters. Clapping, calling out, or cheering is not permitted. Individuals may not approach the board tables. Individuals will make the comments from the speaker's lectern. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and I will provide a 1-minute warning. Any person making any threats of violence will be removed from the meeting or cited by local police. These are expectations are outlined in Board Policy 903 on the website. I also want to draw the attention to the public that the board policy does provide that you need to register before the meeting. So we'd ask that the public do make a point of doing that so that it's your register per the board policy 903 before the 7 o'clock time period for the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich. We have Chastity Santiago, agenda item curriculum.
All right. Statistically, 1 in 9 females under the age of 18 are victims of sexual abuse and are 4 times more likely to become a victim between the ages of 16 and 18. A 10th grade honors English class of 15 females and 9 male students in this district was given an assignment to read one of the short stories identified by a teacher and give a presentation in front of the class. Here's some of what these kids had to read. Some of them giggled when they said it, even when it was their fathers or their uncles or their brothers. I hated them when they giggled, even though they didn't mean anything by it. I know every kind of what that an uncle or brother ever put inside of their little girls. Once a 10-year-old said, she'd bet I'd never heard of a 69, but I've never heard of it from a 10-year-old. I fail to see how reading a story like this is relevant to an honors English class in 10th grade. to their curriculum, how it advances independent thought or critical thinking. In our household, we take our roles as parents to protect and guide very seriously, and these types of assignments subvert the roles of parents in this community. If an adult sent a text or email to any of those students in that class with that content from that story, they would be arrested. Now, Pennsylvania's definition of obscenity applies to any materials that subject matter appeals to unwholesome desires, subject matter depicts or describes sexual conduct, and subject matter lacks serious literary, artistic, political, educational, or scientific value. I think that meets these terms. And knowing that there's exclusions to schools, public schools, on the obscenity laws, there is no exclusion to the violation to your acceptable use of technology and internet safety policy, which prohibits access to obscene or pornographic materials or child pornography. Please do not mistake these concerns for naivety about what goes on in the lives of high school students. It's not a matter of sheltering kids, it's a matter of taxpayers funding a system that uses inappropriate content without parental consent as a means to challenge students academically. I think we can all agree that selecting stories centered
minute.
on rape, death of young girls with sexual references are not part of the curriculum. Is this district willing to commit to two actions? Updating the course selection publication notice that it contains graphic content, just as you do for the forensic science courses, and a formal review of the criteria for what is considered acceptable and provide an update at the next board meeting. You wouldn't accept a job offer without an accurate and thorough description of your role. The students and the parents of this district deserve the same, so they can make the choices that align with their family values.
Thank you for your comments. That's the end of public participation on agenda items. Executive session was held by the board prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel matters. 2.1, request to approve the minutes of the school board meeting held on January 17th, 2023.
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Do we have a second?
Martin.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Payment of bills, Mr. Negrini.
Motion to approve payment of bills from the general fund in the amount of $2,881,537.37 as attached.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. We have a motion for 3.1. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper? Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Superintendent's report. Dr. Trickett?
President Cocker, I submit their superintendent's report, personnel program recommendations this evening. Specifically, I'd like to call everyone's attention to item 4.1, retirements. There are a lot of notable mentors, individuals, teachers, impactful people on this list, as this is the deadline for our teachers to submit their retirements for next school year. So all of these people, hopefully many of you look at these names and think of these folks fondly. Perhaps your kids are in their classes right now. We can say something positive about all of them. Nearly 200 years of service to our school district, and that's not just in the classroom. We have advisors, we have coaches, we have mentors, both mentors for kids and mentors for staff. We have people that I see routinely at night, as I'm sure you do as well as you frequent our evening events here. So I'm super happy for them, sad to see some of these folks go. Specifically, I'd like to touch on Molly and Doug at the very top. Collectively, between the two of them, nearly 95 years of service to the Wilson School District. While Molly, her years of service formally employed is listed at 22.5, she joined our team essentially as a volunteer and a committed member of our community in the 70s. Just want to thank her for her commitment and wish her the best in retirement. And Doug Doms, as many of us know, is a fixture at the high school, began working at Wilson High School before I was born, and has served as a personal mentor to me as I transitioned to Wilson years ago, and is involved in everything. He runs clubs, he's here before school, typically the first car to arrive, last car to leave, runs student experience opportunities for kids, and this was a hard conversation We knew it was coming. 47 years in our system is a long time. It's a noble amount of time. But I just wanted to make sure I identified and acknowledged both of them, as well as Kenny, Lois, Cindy, and Jeremy, as they've committed a lot to our organization.
Thank you, Dr. Schrickett. Looking for a motion to approve superintendent items 4.1 through 4.8 as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider, second.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
5.1, request approval for one additional chaperone to attend the trip to Paris, France for about 15 honors French 4 and 5 students from March 30th through April 7th, 2023. The trip was approved on September 6th, 2022. However, the additional chaperone is up for approval this evening. Looking for a motion for 5.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Kennedy.
Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Under consent items, requests to accept with gratitude the following donation from various artists and collectors. List is attached. 35 pieces of artwork to the Grandview Gallery Robert H. Chappell Collection. From the Berks County Community Foundation, a $500 teacher mini grant to be used to pilot the use of the Beast Academy math program with approximately 10 gifted students who need extra math enrichment challenge within our math curriculum. And from the Berks County Community Foundation, a $500 teacher mini grant to be used to enhance the district's ability to provide unique and meaningful opportunities to provide community-based instructional experiences designed to meet students' social, emotional, and learning needs in our low-incidence special education programs. Looking for a motion to accept consent items for 6.1.
So moved.
Mr. Case, thank you. Do we have a sec-
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under Human Resources, 7.1, request to approve building Bulldog stipends for Madeline Bohr, Dawn Snyder, Felicia Swift, Nancy Snyder, Caitlin Umberger, and Jessica Knott in the total amount of $4,500, $750 each. The stipends will be for organizing the program and will be funded by the Title IV federal grant. Looking for a motion to approve 7.1 Human Resources. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Looking for a second.
Martin.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, well, this is our public service announcement for Building Bulldogs. If you have a child that is going to be entering kindergarten next year, please take a look at our website and register them for any or all of the building activities. There was one that already took place, but this doesn't mean that you can't participate in the following 4 events. Having a motion and second, roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes. 9
yes, 0 no.
Under Student Services, 8.1, request approval of the PDE's Emergency Instructional Time Template, Section 520.1, outlining the proposed temporary instructional schedules under remote and virtual models for 2022-23 school year. 8.2, request permission to approve the adoption of a tuition contract agreement with CHOR, Children's Home of Reading, Center Ave Academy, at a cost of $235.79 for one special education student per day for the 2022-23 school year. 8.3, request approval of a service agreement with the Berks Intermediate Unit for projected special education programs and related services for the 2022-23 school year as attached. Looking for a motion to approve student service agenda items 8.1 through 8.3.
Negrini, so moved.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper.
Mrs. Castor, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, I just would like to point out for 8.1, the PDE Emergency Instructional Time Template is not for snow days, as some other districts have done on the previous ice snow day. It's more for if there was an emergency situation where we lost electricity or, which has happened before, don't have water access to the schools, where we cannot function as a school and need to take an emergency time. So having a motion and second, roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Finance, 9.1, request approval of the 2022-23 BCIU mandated services budget. Wilson share is $94,851.01. 9.2, request approval to advertise bids for 2023-24 school year per the attached bid schedule. 9.3, request to approve Scott Fairchild, high school assistant principal, as an authorized signer on the high school student activities checking account, and to remove Matt Bender as authorized signer. Looking for a motion to approve finance agenda items 9.1 through 9.3.
Negrini, so moved.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Curriculum and Staff Development, 10.1, request approval of the Wilson High School Program of Studies 2023-24. Looking for a motion for 10.1. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, well, I would just like to thank Dr. Stout for organizing the group of students that presented during our communication period of the meeting, because I think it highlights really the extent of our program offerings. Like Dr. Trickett said, we have general ed requirements that everyone must complete, but I think the highlights in our program of studies where students can pick what their passions are, what their passions might be in the future. I think that we're a very lucky district to have the resources and the ability to offer those opportunities to our students. So having a motion and second, roll call please for 10.1.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Transportation, 11.1, request approval of a contract with Ephrata Mennonite School for the transportation of students to Ephrata Mennonite School at a rate of $16.05 per student per day for the 2022-23 school year. Looking for a motion for 11.1.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Case.
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
That brings us to our committee reports, BCTC and Student Services Committees. Mrs. Casper?
Yes, thank you, President Cocker. First, I just wanted to echo Mrs. Cocker's comments and thank Dr. Stout for putting that together. I know I've been talking a lot about what kinds of programs we offer here on site at our campus, where we can sort of find a balance in terms of directing students in the right pathway. And BCTC is a wonderful pathway, and I think we've increased our enrollment in the past couple of years. And I wanted to really kind of get a feel for what we have to offer here, and obviously it's been amazing to see all of the wonderful career paths that students can select right here at our campus. Of course, BCTC is still an option, and it's a wonderful option for our students. So I want to thank Dr. Stout for putting that together for us. For our meeting, we met for the second time in a row virtually. I guess the snow day or the weather, the inclement weather tends to fall on the days that we have our BCTC, JOC meetings. So we met virtually on January 25th. Not much to report during that meeting, other than we did finalize and voted on the resolution that all transportation costs for the sending districts will fall on the districts beginning in the next academic year. Our next meeting is February 22nd at the West Campus. My Student Services Committee meeting, we met on February 1st. And again, kind of a brief meeting. Just wanted to highlight our mental health nights. We have one coming up this Wednesday, I believe. Emotional regulation. And I believe to try to get some folks to attend, some of our counselors are suggesting increase participation, hosting viewing parties for the mental health nights, which would include some food and refreshment and even childcare. So that's a possibility to get folks to come and take advantage of those. Also for our equity and student experience, our Equity Council, we're hoping to reorganize a meeting to review some of our data from our climate survey that went out earlier this year. And hopefully in early March, we'll get us together again to do that, and with some new student representation on that council as well. So, and that's my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. BCIU and curriculum committees, Dr. Kennedy.
Thank you. Along with the items that were approved tonight, including the BCIU budget, the main thing that we spent a lot of time on was one of the highlights of being a BCIU board member. Each year, the BCIU picks a student and hangs their artwork in the BCIU for the whole year. This piece of artwork was made by Vanessa Gajewski. And it is, you can't see it, but I'll describe it. It's 4 friends in various attire in front of the high school, but with a really cool background. It's multi-mode, like it has watercolor, it has pencil, it has all kinds of different things. And so I think that's a really great representation of friends as family in front of the high school. So I'd like to recognize that awesome piece of artwork. Something else that they highlighted was the BCIU hosted a cyber insurance and incidents response workshop. They've been very instrumental in cybersecurity and keeping our kids safe. One of the other things that I thought was super interesting, the BCIU was able to help the Red Cross rescue Reading residents when there was a power outage in one of the apartment buildings. They had no heat or electricity for 10 hours, and they needed a way to transport them. And Mr. Eric Klemmer, he's the administrator for operations, and he's ahead of the transportation. He was able to get bus drivers and organize getting all the residents out of that building. So I thought that was, a great community service that they provided. Curriculum committee next? Sure, okay. So this curriculum committee met January 30th. We first talked about the PSSA and Keystone participation rates. 308 school districts, right? 308?
I thought it was
Yeah.
490.
Lots and lots of school districts, most of the school districts fell below the threshold of 96% for the first time ever, including all 18 Berks districts. No one died. We didn't lose any money. The world did not end because the kids did not take the PSSAs. In fact, what we have to do is fill out a paper that says, what are we going to do to get kids to take the PSSAs more? I personally thought we should have had cake, because I'm thrilled that many parents decided to opt out of the test. What if we did that for 2 or 3 or 4 years? maybe the state would get the hint that perhaps that's not the best way to assess our students. Maybe they would stop sticking PSSA test scores on teacher scores. I don't know, maybe, just an idea. But at any rate, we filled out the paperwork, we put it into the district, and it highlights the items we have currently done and states the root causes of opt-outs, alternative pathways for graduation, and refusals. And as part of the plan, Wilson will continue to monitor our state assessment participation and adjust if necessary. We also talked about dual enrollment and weighting dual enrollment the same as AP. We put a pause on that just because we want to make sure that it's completely fair for students that are already in the track, and we don't want to cause any unfairness and changes of GPAs. Dr. Weber and Dr. Cachufio will have a plan by April 2023 to present to the committee with a final recommendation. As we also approved, the high school program of studies came out. That link is available on the website. This program of study is the document that is used to assist students in scheduling for the upcoming year. There are new courses such as Art Murals 1, Art Murals 2, Introduction to Business, Career Readiness, Honors Algebra 1, Honors Algebra 2, Music Production, Production and Performance 2, and Sports Technology and Innovation. The reason for the addition of Honors Algebra 1 and 2 is to give students more opportunities for honors classes in the subject of math. Lastly, we will be opening another cluster of our iSTEM programming. We now have iSTEM Honors Algebra 1 cluster and an iSTEM Algebra 2 pathway for students. The last thing that we discussed were 2 new special education courses for our students that revolve around being life, college, and career ready. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Berks EIT, Mrs. Schlossman. Thank you. Extracurricular committee has not met since our last meeting, but I wanted to report out. Oftentimes, we'll kind of give the notification or inform everybody that an event is coming up, like our last Wilson Theater Company performance of Our Wonderland, but then nothing said afterwards. So I just wanted to share out that my family, my one child and I attended the Our Wonderland performance, and it was amazing. From start to finish, it was student-led and student-created. The music that they performed, they wrote, the dialogue they created. It was relatively on the cheap side because they didn't have to pay for any royalties because they created it themselves. Costumes, I mean, it was amazing. It was extra special because going into it, I knew that it was all by the students. So it was just very impressive, and I just wanted to kind of give a congratulations and a shout out to that group. It was really quite impressive, and thank you for doing that. So the next extracurricular meeting will meet next Monday, February 13th at noon in the admin building. Facilities Committee, Mr. Case.
Thank you. No report. The next meeting is next Monday, February 13th at 4:30 PM in the Operations Building.
Thank you. Finance Committee, Mr. Negrini.
Thank you. We met earlier today at 4:30. We discussed a few things. First, we discussed proposed tuition rate changes for the Wilson preschool and before and after care programs. One of the things that was discussed was rates that are comparable to some of the other preschool programs that are currently within the Wilson geographic boundaries. There are some that are simply local ones, such as St. Albans, and certainly there are others that are nationally known, such as KinderCare and Goddard. It was recommended that our preschool rates fall in line with those that are of the local assortment of St. Albans and 2 others. Look forward for that information to be sent in a board update in the future. We discussed year-to-date financial summaries and food services participation review. Food services fund account right now shows a balance covering the next 5 months. The child care fund balance shows covering 7 months of expected expenditures. Participation for school lunches are down an average of 194 lunches per day. That is not a surprise, knowing that we have gone back to students and families that do not qualify for free and reduced lunches to pay for school lunches. We had some general discussions about the proposed federal mandates that may require school lunches to be even healthier than they currently are, with a reduction in sugar content, and how good intentions certainly have negative unintended consequences in that may increase the costs for school districts for healthier lunches and further decrease participation throughout the district. So as soon as Sarah comes back from maternity leave, we're going to have some further discussion on that possibility for next year. We reviewed how the local economy continues to be healthy. The EIT are higher than expected from what was budgeted. Transfer taxes are down, showing a slowdown in the housing market here in our area. Charter school enrollment projections are lower than what was budgeted. As of right now, we're showing $310,000 less than what we have budgeted for. And our Wilson Virtual Academy has shown that it saves the district currently approximately $1.2 million in costs, as opposed to all of those students that may have enrolled in cyber charter schools outside the district. So it's commendable that this board and the administration has worked diligently to maintain students that find the need of classroom instruction to be virtual or at home for various different needs, and still providing the Wilson education as opposed to individuals seeking an education outside the Wilson curriculum. And then finally, as Mrs. Schlossman had indicated a couple of months back, the board had adopted a resolution not to exceed the 23-24 budget above the adjusted Act 1 index. That comes out to the adjusted Act 1 index as 1.43 mils. Our deadline for passing a proposed final budget is May 15th. The deadline for passing our final budget is June 19th. If folks recall, last June, Mr. Martin and myself had discussed if, with the passing of the Pennsylvania budget, if there was excess money that came in from Harrisburg that was not part of our budget, that we would look to offset millage increases for this budget process. And what came in excess of what was budgeted last year was 0.34 mils. So we are in the early stages of the general fund budget preparation. So as a starting point, with the Act 1 adjusted index minus the 0.34 mils that was in excess of what we had budgeted for last year, the starting point of our budgetary process for 23-24 would be an increase of 1.09 mils, or 3.8%. As we have traditionally done, as there's a lot of work to be completed, as Dr. Trickett and others have talked about, being focused on priorities for educational needs. And as we've done in the past, we do expect those numbers to go down as we make our way closer to June 19th. So our next meeting is in March. We'll continue to meet on a monthly basis as we work towards a final budget. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini.
Can I ask a
Dr.
question?
Kennedy?
When you go back to the lunch discussion, I'm curious if the 194 less lunches, are they happening at the elementary level, the middle level, or the senior level? I have a theory because we have cafeteria issues up at the high school, and we have, parents are telling me even kids as young as ninth grade are walking to Wawa for lunch. I'm curious if that translates into more lunches being lost at the high school level.
We have that data, and I could share that after. I just didn't make note of, it was broken down within each building of the district and where some of those numbers, really are.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Legislative, Mr. Schneider?
Yeah, not much to report here as the House still hasn't met yet. They're still working through even the rules process, so they're not expected to meet till at least the end of the month. There is the still pending court case about funding. I was reading an article the other day saying that a ruling should be expected sooner rather than later. However, whoever wins or whoever loses it is going to appeal. So I think we have some time before any of the effects of that would be known. I would pass off to you as you met with our new representative the other day and talk about that experience, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, absolutely. So our new rep, Mrs. Johanny Cepeda Freitas, she invited all of the districts in her area, so ourselves, Wyomissing, and Reading. Dr. Trickett, each school district was represented by superintendent, mostly either the board president or vice president, if their schedule permitted, as well as, I think, Mrs. Troutman was on, and a couple other representatives from their districts. And it was a really good conversation. She was basically just kind of touching base with everyone, wanted to hear their strengths and areas of improvement for each district, as well as expressing her passion for education, letting everyone know that she is here for support if we need it, conversations. She's very open. I've already received a couple communications from her team on things that would relate to our district or our community that we can share out. So far, I mean, right off the bat, like you said, they're not even really in session. So right off the bat, she's been very, very open and communicative, and I appreciated it. Dr. Trickett, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just a willingness to continue the dialogue, I think is what all school districts are looking to do. And, we focus most often on what affects our kids here, but there's work to do on an advocacy level outside of Wilson. And the state is a good spot to increase our voice. So looking forward to getting to know her and hopefully helping her achieve some of the goals that she has and making some of her goals that we also share.
Great, and I thought it was really interesting that she has three very different districts to represent, Wyomissing, Wilson, and Reading. We had a lot of very similar challenges, very different challenges, the size difference between the districts, as well as the pool of finances that each district pulls from are drastically different. So, but on the end of the conversation, we all, are there for the betterment of our students in our community. So it was a nice start to hopefully a good relationship moving forward. So thank you, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you, and that's the end of my report.
Okay.
If I may, while we're still
Yes.
on the topic of legislative, came across an article that State Representative Joe Webster out of Montgomery County, it's in the early stages, but has submitted a proposal that school board members receive a salary for their service in the school districts that they serve. If people are unaware, Pennsylvania and Texas are the only two states in the union that prohibits school board members from earning a salary. Again, it is in the early stages of the proposal, has not even gone through the legislative process and the discussions within Harrisburg. So I would encourage those that have an opinion on that to, again, speak out to their locally elected officials. I, for one, would be opposed to such a recommendation, as it would take away any resources from our students. But nonetheless, since it is in the early stages of that, I thought that people may want to get out in front of that particular topic moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Human Resources Committee, Mr. Hart.
I have no report.
Public Relations, Mrs. Troutman.
Good evening, everyone. First, I wanted to announce that it's National School Counseling Week, and this is a week where we celebrate the tremendous impact our school counselors have in helping our students achieve success and plan for their careers, as we've talked about tonight. At Wilson, our school counselors are actively engaged in helping students examine their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents. So for all of their contributions to the lives of our students, we'd like to honor and acknowledge our fantastic team of school counselors. I believe we have one in the audience tonight. Ms. Marconi is here. So thank you, and thank all of your colleagues for just amazing work with our students each and every day. We will be celebrating our school counselors this week through social media, through the Bulldog Blitz, and through a district-wide email. Also, our Wilson art students have been very, very busy lately. We already saw one amazing piece of art, but we had 20 art club students create ceramic bowls for Opportunity House's annual fundraiser, Super Bowl. The event donates bowls. The event offers each attendee a bowl made by high school students, and we donated 28 bowls to that event, which is pretty amazing. Next, Wilson High School students submitted 8 pieces of artwork to the Eastern Central Region Scholastic Art Awards, and we had 4 pieces selected for the prestigious Gold Key. So we want to congratulate Nyani Holt, Mary Brubaker, J.C. Chen, and Maria Sassarin. All those pieces will be on display at the Miller Art Center at Kutztown University, and the 4 Gold Key winners will compete with other national winners. So we're very proud of all of our outstanding artists, and I think we're going to hear even more about art from you too, Danny. So lots of art going on here in the district. It's just incredible. We also want to congratulate Wilson sophomore Kemi Ojikutu on being named to Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation Global Advisory Board. Chosen out of over 360 applicants worldwide, Kemi will be working as an advisor in the planning and execution of programs and campaigns core to the Foundation's mission to make kindness cool, validate the emotions of young people everywhere, and eliminate the stigma surrounding mental health. Kemi is one of only 3 high school students who were selected for this prestigious honor. If you look at the board that she's serving with, it's absolutely incredible. So the fact that we have a student in our school district who is chosen for a global foundation like this is incredible. So we just want to congratulate her. And this past Saturday, we had a team of teachers organize a sensory-friendly basketball game. We had many students attend the game with their families, and our high school buddies were on hand to help cheer on our varsity boys team to victory. So we want to thank everyone who made that just awesome event possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Troutman. Education Foundation, Mr. Case.
Thank you. I love going after Karen Troutman. All good news. I don't have much of a report other than a reminder that one of the best Wilson Education Foundation events is coming up March 19th. Save the date, start buying tickets. There's still sponsorship opportunities for the Iron Chef event. It's great. We're going to have students, I believe students are going to be cooking. There's going to be vendor row. The event just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and I'm just excited that it's back. It's one of the great ones from the Education Foundation. That is, for more information, you can go to www.wilsonsd.org/ironchef. Thank you. Oh, the next meeting is March 17th at 7:30.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Great, AM. Have fun. Thank you, Mr. Case. Technology Committee, Mr. McCray.
No report. Our next meeting is February 21st.
Thank you. Student Outreach, Ms. Danny Radash.
Good evening. Congratulations to the 34 Wilson athletes who committed to play in college on Wednesday at the National Signing Day event. And students recently returned from the AP Bio and AP Environmental Science trip in Jamaica. And in Jamaica, they snorkeled, hiked, and interacted with the local children. And due to the amount of students who participate, they have 2 trips each year, and the second trip is there right now, actually. And as you can see, we have a lot of new artwork in the room, and that was all created by our AP Art students here at Wilson. Very talented. And this Friday, Minithon is hosting another Kids Night Out event at the high school. And on Valentine's Day, the East Asian Club will be selling boba tea after school in the Upper House Auditorium lobby. I know I'm going to be purchasing some boba. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Mr. Maravich? Okay, yes, we have participation in non-agenda items.
I'll try to abbreviate them a little bit. Individuals attending the meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful manner. Public comment is not question and answer, but instead an opportunity to offer comment on matters that are or may come before the board. Board members ask that all comments be directed to the board as a whole. Clapping, calling out, or cheering is not appropriate, nor conversations. Individuals shall make their comments from the speaker lectern. It's 3 minutes. I'll provide a 1-minute warning. And these policies are set forth in Board Policy 903, which is in Board Docs on the website.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich. First, we have Brian Shavinsky. Topic is Other.
Good evening. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once wrote, education must enable one to sift and weigh evidence, to discern the truth from the false, the real from the unreal, and the facts from the fiction. For what I've seen here tonight, we are definitely on the right track based upon the mid-year update, the updates from the students of what they're learning, and all the capabilities that our school district is implementing, is we're on the right track to update our children's education and their non-education. We must remember that our schools are not just places of learning, but also growth and development for the students. It's imperative that we create an environment where critical thinking, acceptance, and equity are at the forefront. Only then can our students truly flourish and reach their full potential. We must strive to make our schools welcoming and inclusive for all students, regardless of their race, religion, gender, or any other differences. When we accept and embrace our differences, we open the doors to new perspectives and opportunities for growth. We must strive to build a community where everyone feels valued and supported. Furthermore, we must remain vigilant in addressing and preventing discrimination in any form. We cannot allow our schools to be places where students may be marginalized or excluded. We must stand up against hate and promote tolerance and understanding. Our public education system is the foundation for building a brighter future. I call upon each and every one of us in the Wilson community to take action together. There is an election this year with 5 seats on the board up for re-election. I ask that each of us embrace our differences, unite against hate and ignorance, do not support groups who use fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Let's build a brighter future for our students. One more action I think is necessary is for Mike Martin to resign tonight. His words of hate and ignorance are still lingering around the school board. They will not be forgotten. Please resign now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Chastity Santiago, Community Concerns.
Okay, well, I think it's only fitting in response to that. I agree. Yes, election's coming up, and I do want to thank the 3 individuals in front of me who were the only ones concerned about an actual incident of racism against a Hispanic student by a teacher in this district. So thank you, Mr. Martin, thank you, Dr. Trickett, and thank you, Mr. Negrini, for your concern. I'm still waiting to hear about the others. I'm an optimist, I'm a fighter, and I'm a problem solver. At a very young age, I was diagnosed with an incurable illness, and I've also survived cancer twice, so I choose my battles very carefully, letting go of the ones that serve no purpose other than to exhaust my energy. And I appreciate each opportunity I get to approach this podium and show my son that true leaders confront reality, make difficult decisions, and are always prepared to suffer loss in the service of others. Politicians allow conversations to veer off track into emotional games, but I'm not a politician, and data doesn't lie. So I'm here seeking tonight to the following answers for the following data. Racial intimidation and harassment. During the censure meeting, a lot of brave families came forward and talked about incidents of racial and intimidation, harassment, bullying. But according to the PA School Safety Dashboard, this district has not reported an incident of racial or harassment or of that nature since 2017. So who's lying? Taxes. The residents of this district taxes have increased over 18% since 2014. But our kids get dumber. Proficiency drops 20% English, 20% math, over 15% science. Students are graduating, but they're not transitioning to work. It's a 6% drop in that. So what are we getting for our taxes? We're burdening the increased number of economically disadvantaged families in this area who can't afford tutors or AP test fees. Why aren't we using the resources to help these families? We have a lot of AP kids who would certainly love to tutor their peers, and possibly this district could, recognize them once in a while, maybe pay their AP fee. Hey, it's just a thought. We're advertising jobs for students to pay them to do custodial duties. That's a life skill. They're not transitioning to work. Obviously, we're missing
1 minute.
something. Can't we incorporate something there? The data proves raising taxes is not helping. So we need better solutions. And why did this district applaud educators and allow educators to create situations where students felt intimidated to sign a petition? I'll remind you, the First Amendment does not entitle primary and secondary teachers, when conducting the education of captive audiences, to cover topics or advocate viewpoints that divert from the curriculum adopted by the school system. Apologize to these students. And the equity policy, we need to either throw it out or review it because you have not met any of your deliverables on it. And the climate survey? That's been out since 12/5. Why is it taking March 3rd to get the results? I mean, come on, it's a pulse. They're going to be ineffective. There's going to be no action you can take by then. Get with it, guys.
Thank you for your comments. Tammy Keener, Violation Discipline Laboratories.
Hi, good evening. I am Tammy Keener, as you know, and if there's one thing I am very proud of my military service to my country, that I protected my Constitution. One thing that disappoints me is the flag. It's wrinkled, it's dirty, and I don't think it's been cleaned in decades. I would be willing to take that flag to a dry cleaner and get it done so it meets our Constitution. I'm embarrassed by it. The increase in military connection students enrolled in our district over the past 4 years has shown 2.1% increase. In 2019, total of 6,084 students, 42 of them military-connected students, 0.7%. By 2022, a total of 6,293 students, 178 of them are military-connected students, which increases 2.8%. With this being said, there is a freshman whose father died in the line of duty as a Marine. This student, I will not name his name, refuses to use your bathrooms at Wilson. He was threatened by bullies in the only boys' bathroom that he is allowed to use, and not only by boys, but by girls that are dressing as boys. He witnessed smoking, vaping, drug use, fighting, and was appalled at the fact that this is happening in the school where his father went to school. He holds his urine, God forbid, and runs home immediately after school to relieve himself. Something needs to be done. I researched the numbers of incidents from the PA State Safety Board, Safety Dashboard, School Safety Dashboard. They do not include any academic or code of conduct in its incidences.
1 minute.
Just as the dashboard would report. This is over a 4-year period from 2018 to 22, increase in incidences. Law enforcement increased 46%, violence, weapons, drugs, alcohol, tobacco, property increased 28%, violence increased 58%, weapons increased 100%. Drugs, alcohol increased 7%, property increased 60%. This is disgusting, and you need to take steps to lower these numbers. The following are the results for students who completed the 2022 climate survey, the ninth graders of all students rated Wilson as one of the worst when it comes to the safety and support, as well as the overall lowest score for safety and respectful environment, social emotional learning, and student support, all ranking way below a 3. This is kind of important to hear this, if you just give me one more minute. All ranking way below a 3, and this is a general response for the grades, for all grades 8 through 12. This alone is proof that the curriculum must be changed. How long how long before you do something about the lack of discipline in the district? How long before you monitor the bathrooms so the violence and smoking and drugs is halted? Or are you going to wait until a life is taken before you do something about it? You claim to be co-parents with us. I am sure most of the parents don't allow their children to do any of this in their homes. So let's step up and start punishing the bad students so that the good students can get the education that they really deserve. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That's the end of public participation on non-agenda items. Do we have any new business from the board? Mrs. Casper?
Yes, thank you, President Cocker. I just wanted to highlight that this past Wednesday, February 1st, marked the start of Black History Month. It is a national recognition. Since 1976, every American president has designated February as Black History Month. This year's theme is very timely. It is Black resistance. And it is a wonderful way that our teachers and even our students can integrate Black history in their experiences here at Wilson. And I think it's important that we center this perspective, not just in February, but now that we have the opportunity, I think it's important that we do that. African Americans have resisted historically and ongoing oppression in all forms, including racial terrorism, police brutality, and we've even had earlier this school year where we've had our own students express themselves in resistance due to racism. And I think it's important that we support our teachers and our students in any form of resistance, and in any form of resistance when it is justified. These efforts have been to advocate for a dignified, self-determined life in a just democratic society in the United States and beyond the United States. I would love to hear more about what is happening in the district in celebration of Black History Month, both from our students and our educators. And I think it's something that we should be highlighting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. Dr. Kennedy?
I'd just like to mention that I was able to go see our Wilson competition cheerleaders on Sunday when they did their showcase, and I'd like to wish them good luck when they go to Disney World to compete.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Other business from the board? Mr. Case?
I don't know, I suppose this could be a hot topic button, but I'm really looking for some guidance in education because I just don't understand the discussion around, or, the controversy over testing. I know that every board member up here, it's a personal opinion on whether we should be testing or not, but, every profession has tests. Colleges have tests, trades have tests. If you're an actor and you go on auditions, you have tests. There's pressure, there's challenges in this world, and I feel it's not the only measure of success, testing. I don't believe, I believe there's many parameters to measure success. I don't believe that teachers should be, have their salary based on testing, which is a concern for some. but there needs to be some sort of assessments to get a baseline for how you are doing. I'm hearing things about middle school. There's school districts that are looking to pull grades from middle schools. I mean, where is the end to this? There needs to be a line for accountability for what people learn, for what schools teach, and to get a baseline across America of how we're doing. So I don't quite understand, and I'm asking for education because I know you're a proponent for not testing at all, and
But that's not, can I go?
yeah, absolutely. I
So-
just want to start a conversation of this because
think-
I don't get it.
I think that's a great question, and I'm going to give you the example of two different kinds of standardized tests. One that tests what we know is a valid test. It tests reading ability, and it gives our teachers usable information that they can use in their everyday life, everyday classroom life. So we do what are called the F&Ps. And that is when our classroom teachers and our reading specialists administer a running record and then comprehension questions and fluency, and they learn all about their students' reading behaviors. That is a standardized test. You can compare Wilson's F&P scores with California F&P scores. It's actually more comparable across the country than our PSSAs, because no other state gives the PSSAs. So that is something that we administer in the fall, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. Our teachers know the results of that assessment right away. The assessment assesses what we're assessing, which is, it's a valid assessment of that child's reading ability. And it's usable. So they can look at that and they can say, wow, this child is doing a fantastic job of reading fluently. They're doing a great job answering surface level questions, but we need to really look at digging into the story more. Or you can say, oh, this is a first grader that is doing a really great job of reading sight words, but they're having trouble sounding words out. You can tell that all from this one test, and you can compare the results of Wilson's F&Ps with anybody else that administers the same standardized test. So that's a good assessment, right? Like it's an assessment that we can use and compare. Now, compare that with the third grade PSSAs. We ask these students, and we do them now on the computer, right? We don't even do the pencil and paper. So that's a different skill set right off the bat. Secondly, I poll my college students every single semester, and I ask them, how many of you read the PSSAs? And do you know how many of those kids read the PSSAs? 0. Well, every once in a while, I have a rule follower that will be like, oh, I was really nervous and I read them. But typically, this is what the PSSAs teach our kids to do. They teach them to read the question and then go straight up into the story to look for the answer. You can get proficient or advanced on the PSSAs never having read a question. Neither of my children, when they do the CDTs, ever read the questions. One's advanced and proficient, one is not, was not. The PSSAs aren't assessing, and we can get away from that word testing and call them assessments. They're not assessing what is meaningful measure of our students' reading ability. They're measuring our students' ability to take a test. I'll tell you a PSSA that I used to like. When I taught 6th grade for the first year, it was the first year the writing PSSA ever came out. And the kids got a story one day, they wrote the draft. Then the next day, they rewrote it, edited. They actually got it a third day, so they could look it over one more time. They shipped the test off to real, live, actual teachers who used to be in Harrisburg. And 2 teachers would read it. They'd use a really great rubric to score it. And then if they disagreed, they'd send it to a third reader. So actual grade level teachers would use a well-researched rubric to give our kids grades. The first year it came out, Mrs. Patterson, the principal, brought me down to the office and she said, Amy, she said, our kids did really great on narrative. They did really fabulous on informational essays, but they did not do as well on persuasive. Do you know why? And I said, well, yeah, I know why. That's my favorite unit to teach. I didn't teach persuasive writing until spring, because it's like highly motivating, and I wanted to end the year on a high note. And she said, hey, why don't you teach persuasive a little earlier next year so the kids have some experience? And that was the old version of test prep. That was the only change we made. And they got tested in writing in 6th grade and 11th grade. And they got tested in reading in 5th, 8th, and 11th, 5th, 8th, and 11th, or 5th, 8th, and 12th. And it wasn't like this every year, and there was no test prep for it. So I could have gotten behind the writing tests. Do you know what happened then? They got rid of the writing tests, and now the only writing they do are writing about what they read, which doesn't require anything but knowing how to turn the answer to a question around and tell you what they think the author thinks. There's no deep thinking. So that's the problem I have. It's not that I don't want a baseline, because I would love a real baseline. It's that we're using assessments that just aren't valid measures of what our students know.
So that's a Pennsylvania thing.
Oh, it's a whole world thing. It's a whole United, no, I lied. It's just the United States. It's a whole United States, absolutely. Some tests, some states have tests that are better. Some states have tests that are a lot worse.
I appreciate the feedback. Thank you. I'm sure this conversation will continue.
I think that was a great start. Do we have any added comments to that conversation? Dr.
I
Trickett?
will defer to other board members before I close.
Okay, Mr. Negrini?
Again, it's a good topic of discussion, and as Mr. Case points out, and I think as Dr. Kennedy said, there needs to be some true measure of assessment. There needs to be some true measure of growth. There needs to be some true measure of proficiency. And so sometimes you have different tests that may ultimately obtain different results, and PSSAs in part is whether or not you even have actual effort being done because students know that it has no bearing on their grades and it has no bearing on whether or not they advance to the next grade. So I think that's part of the concern, that's part of the issue moving forward with, at least for today's discussion, PSSAs. However, you know, there needs to be some standard way of assessing, you know, a student coming out of Wilson earning a particular grade, or it's determined that that particular student is at a specific level, is truly at the same level of someone who is graduating from a school down the road or graduating from, you know, a school across the country. As we've heard stories of, and just using as an example, you know, high school graduates that go on to college, that there's remediation that takes place with some of these students who were getting A's in their high schools that they were graduating from. So that's a problem. That's a problem with true assessment. That's a problem with true grading of skills and mastery of knowledge. So I don't know that there's a simple answer to any of this, but I think ultimately to get away from that and strictly relying upon what is being assessed within the classroom, where we've seen an overinflation of grades throughout the course of the last 30, 40 years, is something that deserves more conversation. So to Mr. Case's point, well taken, and I understand where Dr. Kennedy's coming from an educational standpoint as far as what type of assessment and what those assessments really measure. Yeah, good stuff. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Any
I
other
just had
conversation with the board?
Just full disclosure, I do believe in assessment. I'm not a fan of standardized assessment. I do agree that we need to know how we're doing at some point, how we might compare. But I do believe Dr. Trickett was interviewed recently for an article in the Reading Eagle about this. And I agree that perhaps we, moving forward as our as our populations change and no longer necessarily reflect the standard, and I say that in quotes, I think it's important that we perhaps lessen the weight that we put on certain types of standardized assessment and promote assessing students in a variety of other different types of assessment. And we can still come up with an authentic way of being able to determine where students are at. One of the things that I've always promoted is teachers' authentic assessment. I think sometimes we overlook that teachers actually know how our students are doing a lot better than anybody else. And we often don't bring them to the forefront in terms of helping us determine how to assess students appropriately. They do a lot of their own authentic assessment within their classrooms. So I believe in perhaps exploring other forms of assessment and putting less weight on our standardized assessment. Obviously, as Dr. Kennedy pointed out, they're growing, they're losing their validity if people are choosing not to participate in them. So, we can't put all our eggs in one basket. We can't claim that this is how we're doing. We have to question those numbers, and we have to be critical about that. And so therefore, we need to rely on other forms of assessing that. So I just wanted to point that out.
I would like
Thank
to
you, Mrs. Casper.
piggyback on what Mr. Negrini and Mrs. Casper said, and to thank our secondary administrators and our teachers who have been putting a lot of work in this year. Their goal in secondary is to review all of their assessments, to make sure that they're not underinflating, overinflating, over-assessing things that aren't important, under-assessing other skills that are important. And they're just putting the work in a big way this year, and I'm so proud of what they're doing and glad that it's happening.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. And I would just like to add something that Dr. Kennedy brought up, but from a teacher perspective as well. When I taught 8th grade algebra, our 8th graders that year, they took a reading test for the PSSAs, a PSSA reading, writing, science, and 8th grade math PSSA, as well as, because I taught algebra, an algebra keystone. Now that's shifted, we've made some curricular changes that's not the burden, but for a few years, our 8th graders took 5 standardized tests. So you take that into consideration 2 or 3 days each, that's 15 days just disrupted just for the testing, plus as a math teacher who was responsible for 2 of those tests, teaching them algebra as well as covering everything in the Pennsylvania math curriculum at the same time for the same year. The preparation and the reviewing and the test prep, because it was preparing them to take a test. A lot of standardized testing, especially the PSSAs, isn't necessarily always testing their knowledge, it's testing how well they take a test. I spent weeks preparing them for those exams. And so when I think back, the lessons or the projects or the valuable learning that could have taken place during that time, when instead I was just preparing them for a test, I think that is a good point. If we don't put as much weight and pressure on those exams, then it gives the teachers more freedom as well to just teach the subject, just teach them what they need to know without taking all that extra time to then review everything and prep and really focus on the importance of the test rather than what we should be focusing on and the importance of the learning and the knowledge. So that's just my perspective. Dr. Trickett?
Thank you. This is a great conversation, I think, especially as we're reflecting on our mid-year goal report, because part of the work in developing the profile of the Wilson graduate was to say, what do we value? If we don't agree on what we value, it's hard for us to deploy a team that's focused and strategic on achieving those goals. So what we approved is that proficiency in biology, literature, algebra, the PSSAs in grades 3 through 8 is important. That's approved. It's important because ESSA mandates it, the federal government, then it's interpreted by the Pennsylvania government, the PDE, and then delivered to us as a data point. It's a data point. and we went through this with our staff this year, it's not the data point. It's not the only data point that we're going to use to change programs, to change student schedules. And I'll give you an example. When I became the high school principal many, many years ago, we were testing some kids in algebra 8 times. 8 times. We gave them the Algebra Keystone Assessment. We remediated them. We gave them the assessment. We remediated them again, put them in a different class, possibly eliminated an elective, gave them the assessment. And as we reflected on the pursuit of excellence as measured by one data point, we realized that we were not doing the right thing. We were misguided as administrators and as educators. Those days are long gone. We would never do that to a child today, because that was the indicator set forth by the Commonwealth, that every child should be proficient on the Keystone exam, right? No child left behind, which predated ESSA. That was the goal. Since then, the federal government, the state government has backed off. We have in our measures other things like this. We're looking at how many kids are getting a 2.8 out of a 4.0 GPA, how many kids are taking college developmental courses, remedial English courses, looking at kids that are getting a C or better in math, how many kids are taking dual credit courses in English and mathematics, how many kids are achieving Algebra 2 proficiency by the time they graduate, how many kids are taking advanced placement courses and earning a C or better or getting a 3 or better on the exam. We have metrics in place for SATs in English in math and reading comprehension. We have metrics in place that we're tracking with the ACTs, because all of those measures matter differently depending on the child's plan. Every kid's journey is different. We're looking at FAFSA completion rates. We're looking at ASVAB. That's an important test. Yes, it's a military exam, but it helps kids to develop their career interest inventories. What I'm saying is all of those things matter. I think where schools get out of whack is when they say this is the only target, right? It's a balanced approach, and I think as an organization, we've been struggling with that a little bit, candidly, over the years. I just would encourage everyone to go back and look at the profile of the Wilson graduate, look at some of the data that we said we're going to collect this year, because those are the pieces going into next year we want to show to our community to say, this is how we're doing. This is how we're doing on these measures. It's not that this one's more important than that one. Danny has to decide what's important for her on her journey with her family. But what might be important to one kid might be not very important to the other. The only point I'll say on the data conversations we've had with our teachers throughout the organization over the last four or 5 weeks is where I become concerned is that when our data is showing, it's telling a story that I know is not true. And I'll just share one of our grade levels, and it's in mathematics, is showing proficiency levels that I know, talking to our teachers, being in classrooms, talking to our leadership team, there's no way that's possible. So there is a disconnect. The disconnect could just simply be maybe we don't value the test. It could be that our opt-out numbers are high. It could be that 4% of our students can't read the exam that's written in English. These are real stories of real children. It could be that a student is on a second grade reading level and taking a 10th grade exam. It's a real story. That kid should not be taking this exam, but we don't have the choice other than getting an opt-out violation, which we will gladly do. So it's a complex piece. It does affect kids. It does affect their confidence from time to time as well, because they get a letter in the mail in the summer that says you're not good at something. That is what keeps me up at night. I don't like the letter. I don't like the process. I don't like anyone else telling us what our kids are good at. So it's a struggle. We need to find balance. My recommendation is that we continue the conversation in our committee structure and at this board, because if we need to shift our goals going into next school year, we would need to make sure we have that direction.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Any other further conversation from the board? Okay, hearing none, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Schneider, so moved.
Meeting adjourned.